Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I've got a new nail art tutorial for you, so let's hurry up and get started. So let's just get the technical stuff out of the way first. I'm starting off on an artificial nail tip which I've buffed so it's a little bit more rough, so the paint just doesn't slide over it as easily, like it grabs on more. On that I'm painting the background with cheap acrylic paint and a cheap brush, just a very tiny brush. The tiniest brush you can find is the best. And then I let it dry for approximately 12 years. Well, not that long, but that's how long it feels like at least. Before I put acrylic on it, like clear acrylic, let that dry, which goes significantly faster. Then I file the nail and then I paint on the next layer of acrylic paint, and once that, after like approximately 12 years again, is completely dry, it's time for gel top coat, which I cure, and it's then dry immediately, which is nice, and then we're completely done. So yeah, that's the technical part. And the idea this time for the nail art was a tree fairy. Yeah, there's like back in the day, like really long ago, apparently people used to believe that there were like fairies and stuff in all sorts of things, like flowers and like rocks and also trees. And there's a lot of fun stories, well fun, you know, or like violent or just plain weird. But there's a lot of stories at any rate, and they're mostly amusing, about fairies and like how people encountered them and what happened and stuff like that. One of those stories is from Italy, where apparently at some point lived a prince who had a flower tree on... my book says what kind of flower tree it was, by the way, but I have no idea what it's called in English. But it was a flower tree at any rate, and there was a fairy living in that flower tree. Now, how he found out about that is, well, the first really weird part of the story, really. At some point in time, there was suddenly this weird thing of there being a creature that came out of the tree every night to do certain activities with him in bed at night. And they were not sleeping. Yeah, I mean, in what universe is normal when your potted plants try to seduce you and like actually succeed at it? I don't know, but I mean, he was apparently okay with it, so whatever. But at any rate, that happened, but he was kind of curious to how she actually looked like, because she always slipped away back into the tree before the morning light arrived. And instead of just asking her to stay for breakfast, like a normal person would do, he instead just tied a strand of her hair around his wrist to make sure she couldn't leave in the morning. I'm pretty sure that should be considered a red flag nowadays, but back in the day apparently that was romantic or something. So yeah, anyway, the morning light arrived, the sun rose, and he found out, hey, it's a really gorgeous woman who is apparently also a fairy. I always sort of wonder if she would have been ugly, would he have still liked her, because it seems like a lot of those princes back in the day were pretty superficial, because all the women in like the stories that like end well were beautiful. But anyway, that's not the point of this story. He fell in love with her, he kept, you know, having nightly activities with her, but apparently the prince was also a little bit of a playboy before he met the fairy, because he did have a few ladies who were really jealous. So yeah, he realized that would probably form a problem at some point in time, so when he had to leave for business stuff at some point, he told the fairy to stay in her tree for her own safety. And she was like, okay, but just tie a bell to one of my like leaves, so if you like, you know, ring it and I know I can come out again. Okay, sure. So he did, but then a few of his lady friends who he was ignoring, you know, broke into his room. Couldn't find a lady there because apparently they were so jealous they wanted to like go straight into a fight or something, I guess. But they did find a tree, and just out of sheer anger or whatever, they decided to tear up the tree. Accidentally rang the bell, so the fairy came out, and then they did what any sane person would do. Not, they murdered her. Like, literally ripped her apart, cut her apart, because for some reason they also brought knives. I mean, I don't know what the princess taste of woman was, but that doesn't sound like a good way to like settle a dispute, I think. But anyway, and then they ran away. The gardener came. He was like, well, I don't want to get the blame for this. So he shoved all the bones and stuff back into the, well, the pot where the potted plant was in the first place, and left. And then the prince came back, grieved for like weeks or something, not months. The books didn't say months, just weeks. And meanwhile the tree grew again and the fairy came back to life and they married and well, they lived happily ever after, but the jealous ladies got shoved into the dungeons for the rest of their lives. Dark dungeons. Because that's how people dealt with people they didn't like back in the day. Just toss them in a dungeon and forget about them. So yeah, fun story, isn't it? It's just one of the many stories about fairies, but this one, I don't know. It's just so weird and there's so many weird, funny things in it that I just really liked it. Anyway, this is the end result and that's the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please click the like button. It would really help me out. And if you want to see more, you can always subscribe to my channel. And for now, as always, thank you very much for watching. And I hope to see you next time. Bye!